goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello. Let's spend the next hour talking about Nancy Reagan. No? Shoot. You don't want to talk about Nancy? Oh, God. Well, okay. I have to read, I won't. Boy, do we love to hate that one. And then it turns out, I'm going to talk about her a little bit. And then it turns out she was actually an ameliorating influence in large part during her husband's administration, pulling him sometimes from the embrace of his hawkish advisors. And by all historical accounts, she was the one who suggested to Ronnie that the continuing evil empire talk was really getting the United States nowhere, and that perhaps he should tone it down and, in fact, seek out some manner of dialogue. So that's good. And a few other things, I guess. But I guess the thing that always, the two of them, you have to admit, was like a Hollywood, like a cinematic love. I don't think many people do have a love like that seems to exclude absolutely everybody, including their own children. There's just, for two people to have that kind of bond that is the be-all, end-all, cannot live without thing is, it always sort of blew my mind. Anyway, you have to agree, though, that she and he, in their terrible parenting manner, did give rise to two their two children are anything but Republicans. They begot two troublemaking, straight-talking, less with Patty, but certainly with their son, who I find extremely bright and well-spoken and brave in a lot of ways. So, whatever. That's it. When I heard she died, my first reaction was not, oh, or yippee, or anything. My first reaction was, oh, this is like one of the only things where we'll get a respite for a second from Donald Trump, right? But then it occurred to me, oh dear, because now we'll be stuck listening to what a wondrous being she was. And Dick Thornburg, my God, was the personification of beauty and grace. Yeah. So we're in for a few days of that. Actually, when Reagan died, her name was not Nancy. Do you know that? If you read the obit, are you looking at it right now, Celine? What was her given name? Anne Francis. Anne Francis, whatever her name was. Robbins. Anne Francis Robbins. And they called her Nancy. What? Well, I mean, Nancy's a name. It's not a nickname. So why would you have why would you name a baby Anne Francis, and then call her Nancy? I don't get that one. Don't get that one. Whatever. I'm a little discombobulated, and saying that word reminds me of something that I was reminded of yesterday when I was at the Philadelphia airport and had just survived the TSA line yet again. I'd come through and I was standing with a bunch of other people, getting dressed again, putting on sweaters and coats and belts and shoes, and I was reminded, and I've told you this before, that going through the Milwaukee airport once, when I got through their TSA line and came into the place where you can start getting yourself back together again, they had a sign. You've heard this before, many of you. They had a big sign up that said recombobulation area. And I thought that was it is funny. That's funny. It's not even a word. Recombobulation area. An acknowledgement that they had discombobulated you. And now we're giving you a space to recombobulate. Love it. Just love it. So when I was recombobulating yesterday, I happened to turn to my friends and say, tell them about this recombobulation area, which gave us all a very needed laugh after the misery, really, and the stupidity. The stupidity of it. Anyway, I am sort of discombobulated, not only because I was traveling, and I'm a bad traveler, and then returning, but last time I talked to you, I think I told you that my car seemed to have died on the way to work. I'd managed to limp my way down to Smithfield and get the car parked. And so after the show on Friday, I sat out on Smithfield for an hour waiting for a AAA guy to come with a flatbed truck and take my car away. It is still away. I'm carless. And you could say, well, I could have taken the bus, but the thing is, the bus that I take, I get to the bus stop by driving to the bus stop, and then getting on the what do they call that? The busway, which is great. I mean, just great. But if I were to take, I didn't even know what bus to take, and I would have had to get up like an hour early to go wandering through the city streets. So I called Uber, and that really is amazing. I mean, it's amazing how fast. I was thinking, geez, I wonder how quickly they'll get here. And what they got there in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. I know somebody had said, well, aren't you nervous about whether they'll come on time? I mean, how do you know when? I said, well, I think they're just all prowling around out there. And the minute you put your address up, they're 2 minutes. That's pretty amazing. So anyway, I'm still discombobulated. I can't even get my dealer to call me back. I don't know if I'll ever have a car again. I will be Ubering now for some time. And so what? Does that mean I can't do a coherent program? It could be. It could be. So I was I've already lost the little bit I managed to take in today. Where's my other little piece? I was in Philly for a state ACLU board meeting. I am privileged to serve on that board. And you can't spend a weekend in Philly with talking about with the ACLU and not be sobered up about all of the issues that need to be attacked, addressed. It's simply endless. Margie's saying, well, your name is Ida and you call yourself Lynn, but not. My given name was Ida Lynn Miller. So I do go by one of my given names. I mean, I'm not called Stephanie. I mean, why would, it's just odd, I think. Anyway. So I spent the weekend being reminded of all of the things that are not right in Pennsylvania regarding civil liberties. And so much of it having to do with criminal justice. And I sort of, the word sticks in my craw because there's often little about justice. The extraordinary over-incarceration problem, not just in this state, but the fact that Pennsylvania, do you know this? Pennsylvania, I believe, is the only state in this country that has no funding resource for public defenders. That is left to each individual county. Well, some counties are rural. They have next to no money. There's no way if you're an indigent, if you're not a person capable of hiring an attorney in Pennsylvania, there is no way you are going to get representation or even minimal representation because the state refuses to do what every other state, I mean, I'm talking about Mississippi and Arkansas and Georgia and Louisiana have seen fit to do. There is so much in this state that is mind-boggling when you start looking at it. And that, in fact, prevents access to equal justice by people who don't have money. Our jails, the jail over there, the lovely jail that we built on the river, that jail is filled to the gills with people who don't belong there. Some, they don't belong because they are in fact mentally ill, which is why they got stuck in the dragnet of the judicial system, and we have no other place to put them, so we put them in jail. This is grotesque. They get sicker. When I drive by that thing, you ever drive, on the parkway and you drive by it, or you're on the boulevard and you drive by it, it so breaks my heart every time, because I think of the people that are in that building who are suffering, and they do not belong there. Other people are in there for months and months, even years, who do not belong there. They are there simply because that building has become a debtor's prison. We're no better than Charles Dickens' England. People who don't have the money to make bail, to pay fines, they sit in cages. If you read our Constitution, none of that passes muster with what we as citizens of this country are promised. I could go on till I'm blue in the face. And all of that, have you seen this story about the federal judge, the Justice Department judge who heads immigration? He actually teaches judges who will be dealing with immigration cases. He was deposed in a federal court in a case brought by the ACLU and some immigration groups as well. And listen to what he said. This is the judge who has been with the Justice Department of the United States of America for a long time, and in fact so long that he's the guy responsible for training all the other judges. In a deposition, he said this: I've taught immigration law to 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of patience. They get it. But it can be done, and they do then get a fair hearing. What he was saying was that he actually does not allow a 3-year-old immigrant who might find themselves in court from being represented by an attorney. He explains to them immigration law so that they can represent themselves. Do you even believe that? 3 and 4-year-old children. In the frightening, I'd be frightened if I were called into court, given no representation. They are there because they are facing deportation, and they are left. A 3-year-old is left to defend him or herself. I read this a few times because I thought, am I reading this right? There's actually a debate in this country over whether children, 3-year-olds who are immigrants and are facing deportation, are entitled to attorneys. I bet the Republicans would say they're not. I bet they would say they're not. Because those attorneys are taxpayer funded. And if these are illegals, why should a 3-year-old be given an attorney representation that I've had to pay for as an American citizen? So this judge, very wisely, somehow teaches, probably in 2 minutes or 3, the little terrified child before him. See, now here's what the, I mean, is this, it's like a joke. Thousands of these kids in this country, the exceptional United States of America, are in court and forced to defend themselves from deportation. They don't even know what the hell deportation means. They might not even speak the language. Twice in this deposition, this big, powerful judge made the same claim. I've told you, he said in other part of, I have trained 3- and 4-year-olds in immigration law. You can do a fair hearing. What? A psychology professor at Temple University reading this is quoted as saying, I nearly fell off my chair. I wonder why he didn't fall off his chair. So this case, by the way, the Justice Department run by Loretta Lynch under Barack Obama are the ones that are opposing the ACLU in this case. Understand that. The judge who made these remarks, and now that they've come out, has said that his remarks were misrepresented and do not present an accurate assessment of my views, and they were taken out of context. Try to imagine the context in which this guy would say, I've trained 3- and 4-year-olds in immigration law. You can do a fair hearing. What context would make that less mind-blowing? And this is the guy responsible for coordinating the federal Justice Department's training of all immigration judges. Obviously, what is at stake here? The ACLU is saying that the failure of the government to provide representation for 3-, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 8-year-olds who obviously do not have the wherewithal, the money, to hire an attorney, that this is a egregious violation of our Constitution. Have you given any money to anyone lately? Will you give to the ACLU? Needless to say, they get no federal funds. They exist only because people like you send them a few bucks. Unbelievable. Well, I did not watch the Democratic debate yesterday night. I had to watch the end of Downton Abbey. Which I could have watched tonight, but I just didn't want to. And did you watch the end of Downton Abbey? Celine?
No, I didn't.
No, she did not. I got to tell you, it was ridiculous.
I stopped watching like 2 seasons.
Stopped watching. It was ridiculous. I mean, you could. I'm sorry if you haven't watched it yet and you want to watch it. Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! It was absurd. I mean, treacly wouldn't be. It was like I was gagging from the overdose of absurd, wondrous resolution of every. By the time the damn thing was over, every single man and woman in that show was paired up with another one, and they were all, in love, and life was wonderful. Jeez. I mean, well, it was a soap, but even soap operas, don't they? I mean, the reality is that, nothing, there's not always happy endings for everybody. That all of these stories, I'm sorry for those of you who don't watch this nonsense, all these stories of all these people and everything ends absolutely perfectly. Like if you, oh please God, please let them have a baby. Oh please God, please let them be reconciled. Oh please let them be. What a joke. It ruined the entire experience for me. God, I thought the Brits weren't as. I thought they were more realistic in their dramatic presentations in some respects. I mean, it was like the kind of, a studio boss would insist on this ending in America. Oh no, you can't. Oh, we don't want to upset our viewer. Why not upset your viewers in the last episode? What are they going to do? Not watch anymore? Jeez. Thought it sucked. And for that, I missed the Democratic debate. Okay, so speaking of the debates, you cannot go anywhere anymore, right? You cannot be in any situation where the word Trump doesn't come up within, what do you think, about 5 minutes, 10 minutes? It really is something. So anyway, the thing that I think some of you have said, I certainly have said, that in some respects is the most troubling of all of this craziness that we have entered upon and being carried away with is not Donald Trump per se, but the fact that he has created this situation, or his presence, and the fact that his presence has attracted such a huge swath of Americans, and in some ways unmasked us, so that it's hard now to deny certain things. I'm going to keep interrupting myself. Did you see the Saturday Night Live? Oh my God, they've got something. This was, I thought, brilliant. They did a parody of a ad for Trump, and it's perfect. It totally, I couldn't figure out where they were going with it. Because it so mirrored the kinds of political spots that we've grown used to. Not one of the getcha spots, but one of those spots that shows America and Americans, regular people that you totally identify with. And they're totally nice, and they're doing their, woman ironing, a man on a ladder painting. a guy bringing firewood and whatever. It just regular Americans doing things who turn to the camera and say things like, I'm voting for Donald Trump because, and it's some, a nice thing because he'll do this and he listens to us and he represents them. And they go from that gauzy, regular, ordinary Americans. And then they go back to the same group that you've seen individually and let them say another thing. And so the first guy who has been saying, and he's wonderful, a nice-looking young American man. And then he puts on, in the second time you see him, he's still talking to you in that same voice, and he puts on his coat, and on his arm is a swastika, right? The tone is the same, you just see the swastika. Then they go back to the woman ironing at her ironing board. And she says her second line about, yes, wonderful. And then the thing she's ironing, she flips over, and it's a KKK hood. And then you go to the painter, this nice, affable-looking, plump guy on a ladder. And he turns, with his paintbrush, and he says the same kind of thing. And then the camera pulls out. And, of course, he's scrawled on some building something like white power. I don't know. I just saw it was. Oh, and the guy with carrying the firewood was, of course, turns out to be carrying it to a cross burning. Brilliant. It was brilliant. Hard to laugh sometimes about this, but yes, brilliant. So the fascist thing that I have brought up in the past, and that some people think is over the top, I understand the Louis C.K., the comedian, also came out with on his account, his email or whatever, his blog, I don't know what he does, and he also said 30s, Germany. Those German people thought this stem winder, weird guy that spouting all this stuff was not going to really go anywhere, but they loved the trouble he was causing and the this and that. And, this is how it happens. This is how it happens. And I don't think this is overstated. I don't think it's overstated. I mean, you don't make that turn from democracy to fascism like bang. You make it in steps. And we've taken the first big step in the last 30, 40 years because I think we are not so much a democracy anymore. I think that's why these people are so angry, because we are, in fact, an oligarchy, right? We are a country that is run not by the people, but by the rich guys, the corporatists, the capitalists in cahoots with the government. So that's an oligarchy. Then, since we've gone from the democracy to the oligarchy, and then from oligarchy, it is not that hard to slip in to fascism. In fact, slipping into fascism usually requires the oligarchic aspect to happen. Then you add atop it a nationalistic aspect, and Donald Trump is everything. He is a true nationalist. That's part of the appeal. And also a xenophobic aspect. That's there, the anti-immigrant. The scapegoating of minority populations. And you tell me, what is it that I'm saying that is different than what happened in Hitler's rise? What? Tell me. And by the time the establishment wakes up and starts to think, my God, this clown could actually, what? We got to stop this. It's too late. Now, what I interrupted myself with that. What I wanted to say was that what I find the most troubling is the media's collusion in the rise of Trump and his mob. There is no way, and here again, the fact that media used to be serious about its job. Believe me, when I was first in television news and reporting, you felt a great responsibility. It was taught to us that our job was to tell people what they needed to know. That's not at all what media and journalism as we see it practice now, especially on television, is doing. Not at all. I was told something really upsetting the other day. I have a friend who is a consultant to television stations. And he said that one of his stations had just been scarfed up. Actually, two of his stations that he works with has just been scarfed up by a big company. He says that now owns more TV stations in this country than any other. And I said, who? Wouldn't I know that name? And then he told me the name, and I never heard of it. I'm trying to remember. It was like something like 4-Star or Star. I don't know what the hell it was. I never heard of it. Owns a gazillion stations and continues to scarf more up. It was started by a guy who was sold ads for WPXI TV here. This corporation, which now owns and controls the television news that a huge percentage of Americans get, cares not one whit about journalism or responsibility. It cares only about acquiring stations, squeezing each station, throwing people out of work, fewer reporters, fewer people who know what they were doing, even know the community they're serving, and then obviously dumbing down news further. There are a number of companies now that you don't really know about that are buying up the TV stations all over this country. These are corporatists. They're the kind of people that in a fascist kind of situation would fit really well. Why don't we see? This is the kind of thing that should be reported on. We need to know what's happening. And instead we get CNN that literally cannot cover anything, right? Anything. Do you remember when they used to sort of cover the news? You could turn on to CNN and get a sense of what had happened, places in the country. You can't do that anymore. They are focused pretty much solely on Donald Trump. And there are people who've been crunching the numbers, and the numbers are astonishing of how much airtime he has been given. And it's not just CNN, because in fact, it was the CBS executive, the CEO and president, Les Moonves, who said this. I mean, this guy's been around for a long time. He said this: Trump may not be good for America, but it's damn good for CBS. CBS. CNN, after one of its debates, then gave a full, almost hour to a one-on-one interview with Donald Trump. Then they gave sort of a little bit of time to a Ted Cruz, then went back and Anderson Cooper did almost an hour with Donald Trump. Here are some of the questions put to Trump at CNN's last town hall. Ready? What do you eat when you roll up to a McDonald's? What does Donald Trump order? Here's another one. How many hours a night do you sleep? What's your favorite kind of music? What kind of parent are you? These are the questions they are asking a man who says whatever he wants to say and is creating this. I just, I'm sorry. I'm not being very articulate today, but I'm really astonished. Maybe we can thank Trump for unmasking all of it. But are we seeing it now? Are we seeing it? The media is making money hand over fist, not just by drawing crowds with Trump, but also because of all the ads. All of the political ads. Where do those run? They run on TV. They run on radio. So cable and broadcast are just, I think they make more money in a presidential election year than they do in the other 3 years combined. They live off of the ugliness and the mean-spiritedness and the gazillions of dollars that the Supreme Court says are free speech. They live off that because all that money, where does it go? CBS, CNN. They are in hog heaven. And any responsibility they had as journalists, here's what one actual journalist wrote about this new paradigm. God help us. His name is Ryan Holiday. He said, politicians have always sought to manipulate the public. What is changed here is that media is now not only a willing co-conspirator, they are often, media often is the driving force behind the manipulation. No longer seeing itself as responsible for reporting the truth, for getting the facts to the people, the voters. It has instead incentivized a scrum, a wild fight for attention in which anything that attracts an audience is fair game. And as long as theirs is the ring where the fight goes down, they will happily sell tickets to as many as will come. So that's where we are. Seeing a lot of people sell their souls. We're seeing a lot of people sell their souls. And when you hand over the corporatization, I lived through the true corporatization of American media. Used to be back when I started, that most actually TV stations were owned by small companies, often local. They felt a responsibility to their communities, to the people, radio stations too, maybe even more so. And then, of course, the federal government, and I believe this was a Bill Clinton bill. He signed off on this. He allowed big corporations to scarf up a whole bunch of, there used to be a limit, a very small limit, how many TV stations you could own. They got rid of it. And then they said, used to be, if you owned the newspaper in town, you couldn't own a TV station. Got rid of that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that was Bill Clinton. So you've had this consolidation in a very few corporate hands of our media. And you've had this vertical, I think they call that, integration of media, huge media companies owning book publishers. The same guys own the book publishers, the networks, cable, broadcast, newspapers. You don't see that is a situation that is ripe for unbelievable corruption of a democracy. So anyway, I'm not laughing anymore, in case you hadn't noticed. I'm not. Now, it seems that Trump, maybe this effort, and it's not like I'm cheering on the effort of these oligarchists of the corporate establishment and their political handmaidens to stop Trump. I am not behind it. I'd like to see him stopped, but by them? I want them all taken down. It looks like they're getting a little traction. But look who looks like he might have had the smartest game plan of all. Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz, who everybody said at the beginning his plan was to ride Trump's coattails as long as he could. And then when Trump fell away, to come up and be able to pull in his voters. Now, Cruz will not be able to pull in all of Trump's voters because it's the Donald they want and love. But if it's Cruz, if in fact we get to Cleveland with a contested election, it's going to be Cruz or Trump. Pick your poison. I think, what was it, Lindsey Graham who said, yeah, it's like deciding, if you want to drink the arsenic or eat the hemlock. I don't know. Incredible. And here's the other thing. So if all of this pretty much blows up the Republican Party and Democrats want to get all excited about that, let me just suggest this. Don't. Few reasons. If Hillary Clinton wins and the Democratic Party is still whole and functional and the Republicans are total disarray, do you not think the Democratic Party will become essentially what the corporatists then want? They'll just move over to the Democratic Party and take it. They already almost own it. They don't own it to the extent they own the Republicans. But Hillary's coziness with Goldman Sachs and all that kind of stuff, that and the campaign finance and the corruption of the Supreme Court, the whole thing. I don't see why there's reason for joy here at all. A Republican meltdown creates a vacuum into which what comes? You look at it, and it's frightening. We're not only scaring the bejeebers out of ourselves, we're scaring the rest of the world. And I think more than almost any other country, you're seeing Germans express the most alarm. Because they've seen this before. They've seen something that looks uncomfortably like this. They know how a great democracy, a cultured, rich, they took a beating in World War I, but how a cultured, educated country can turn into a monstrous threat to the world. I've compared Trump to Berlusconi, and I think that holds. But Berlusconi was, he was the president of Italy, and Italy is not a world power. On the plane yesterday, flying back here, my seatmate showed me a map that had been drawn up. And it was, a poll was taken, I guess, all over the world of people in every country. What country do you consider the greatest threat to the world? And then what they did is on this map, they just stuck the flag of the country that geographical place had said is the greatest threat. Guess what flag dominated that world map, considered the greatest threat to the world? It's amazing. I was blown away. It was the American flag. It was the American flag in Africa. It was the American flag in South America. It was the American flag in much of Asia. I think Iran had, you saw the Israeli flag. In a few places you saw the Iranian flag. We are viewed by the world right now as the most potentially frightening place on earth. Incredible. All right, what do you guys have to say? Let's see here. Barbara, she says, is this photoshopped? I don't know. The picture's not coming up. I can't help you. Roger writes, the Democratic debate was disappointing. Bernie and Hillary were raising their voices at each other. Oh, God. See, but here's what happens. Over trivial topics like safe drinking water. That's not a trivial topic. Roger. Bailing out the auto industry and fracking. I have no idea which of them has small hands or gets on their knees. Jesus. Chuck writes, do you recall that Nancy Reagan spent $250,000 on the White House china? Yeah, she did. Well, let's be correct. I believe it was just $200,000. And She got it. She got the money. It wasn't taxpayer dollars. It was her rich friends. Because she wanted China that had a red rim around it because red was her favorite color. I'm just wondering, Chuck writes, what China pattern President Trump's wife, First Lady Melania, is that how it's pronounced? Melania Trump will order. Oh. Anyway, he goes on. The Twitter sphere went into an absolute frenzy when that Saturday Night Live skit finished. I thought it was just brilliant. Remember, most people remember the two references to the KKK, but they also featured a Nazi sympathizer and a Muslim bigot in that skit. Yes. I watched it live, and then it immediately rocketed to the top of the trending list. But I've yet to hear a Trump representative comment on it. Well, what are they going to say? In the SNL cold open, they had Trump calling Christie a fat piece of crap. Did he really? No. You mean they had a guy playing Trump calling? I mean, see, so I'm asking that because it's possible that Trump, did I miss it? Did Trump call Christie a fat piece of crap? I mean, I don't think so. But it's totally plausible. That whole open was pretty funny, too, especially the part with Hillary borrowing the words from the song Stuck in the Middle with You. Well, no, I didn't see it. I just happened to see that one thing. I got to tell you, this, for people like, Rob Rogers, who does political cartoons, for people who talk like me, for CBS and CNN, this election is a gift, right? I don't have to wake up in the morning thinking, oh, what am I going to talk about? I mean, there's no end, right? The material. For Saturday Night Live, I bet they don't even have to, they might have used to have to work 12-hour days trying to get a show together. They must roll in now about noon and say, oh, God, there's so much stuff here. What'll be? I don't even know. Their problem now is throwing things out. Because you can't satirize that which is already doing the job itself. Barbara sends this. The Queen of Head is dead. At 94, the life of Nancy Reagan, the pinup girl for the genocidal war on drugs, finally blinked out. Rat Pack actor Peter Lawford, who frequently appeared on Ronald Reagan's General Electric Theater, wrote in his memoir that Nancy gave the best blowjobs in Hollywood. Oh, come on. What have we come to? What have we come to? Oh, I can't. I don't think I can stand it anymore. The thing I found scariest about her at the time was her love of astrology, and her and the fact that she actually consulted, astrologers about what to do, and then that she had the president's ear totally. He trusted no one more than he trusted her. You got evangelical leaders now tripping on. There was, I think one of them wrote a piece in the Post-Gazette yesterday. They are now coming out and saying to their flocks, guys, wait a minute. Well, you can't call yourself an evangelical Christian and then support this. This is like everything. It's antithetical to everything that Jesus said. Everything. And you know how much impact that's having? None. Because these people who want him are not listening anymore to anybody in authority. It could be that with this onslaught of anti-Trump spots that are all over in these primary states now, we're being spared them. But it could be that what they will do, and maybe you could see from the results this weekend, that what they will do is slow the bandwagon might not be taking many more people on, and in fact, a few people might be jumping off. I don't know. But to discount him and his rise is still, I think, perhaps a fool's errand. And if tomorrow he takes Michigan decisively, why should I be telling you anything that you can hear on any of these other shows, you know? Barbara, it still isn't coming. I know you keep trying to send that thing, and it's not. It just ain't. It ain't happening. It ain't coming up on my. It's something about Trump and Mussolini. It's not happening. But, you know, you're supposed to not, you know, bring up the H word. I don't see him as a Hitler, but I mean, I do see him as a fascist, and I do see us as a country that has already tolerated the loss of our democracy and has sat on our hands as the capitalists have bought our so-called representatives, our government, and our Supreme Court, which has done the bidding of the rich and powerful. I mean, and the people who are now not sitting on their hands anymore are the Trump supporters, and to a certain extent the Bernie supporters, but the Trump supporters. Beware a populist uprising in the United States of America, because it ain't going left. A populist uprising in America, I've said this for the last 3 decades, a populist uprising in this country goes right. And that's what we're seeing. I'll try to be in a better mood tomorrow. I will, but I don't know how okay, goodbye. I'm sorry. Why would you listen to this? Go for a walk. Spring is here. Love the sun. Go into nature. The part of it we still haven't destroyed. Go.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.